let me ask you a question. Are we recording?
Oh, shit. I didn't know it was recording.
I felt like some of our dialogue was pretty good.
Cheers. All right.
Wait, show me your cup. Show me your cup.
Puppies.
With glasses.
Puppies with cool puppies with heart glasses.
All
right. Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the Endnote, everyone.
We've been on hiatus for a few weeks, so thank you for your patience. But we are back on a bi-weekly basis, recording and planning and living our lives. Took some time.
Like we're golden. Living our life like it's golden.
Like it's golden. Living our life like it's 2021, ladies and gentlemen. But we're back, and we're happy to be here today.
So in our first episode, we talked about our identities and the masks that we wear. I think that was our second episode, right? How we show up in our communities. And then we introduced the Do We Know Her segment and discussed historical women. We were talking about women in the Senate and politics and the 2021 inauguration, some historical women from the past, the present. And we shared a little bit about what we're reading and what we're watching.
In this week's episode, we're branching out and discussing and exploring our experiences living in this COVID era, 2020 and 2021, where we're spending more times indoors and less interaction. Previously known as the winter blues, we're now calling it the COVID blues, guys, because we're all experiencing it with our isolation. But before we get into our topic of the week, let's talk about what has caught our attention this week. This is a segment of our episode where we talk about things that we find interesting, things that have necessarily caught our attention. So I finished 2 books. First book is Office of Historical Corrections. Office of Historical Corrections is a collection of short stories and a little longer story by Danielle Evans. I do recommend this book without giving it away. It's a lot about how women experience pain, grief, and loss. Oh. And it shows their unwillingness to diminish their desires to live full and complex lives. That's an excerpt I got from the author when she discussed her book, actually in the insert, which I thought was very poignant and very much on point of what the book was actually about. But because I wasn't expecting it to be about that, it was really difficult to read. Second book, Interior Chinatown. Interior Chinatown won a lot of awards. It's from Charles Yu, who's also, he wrote Westworld, if you're into Westworld series in HBO. But it's really about this Asian American family trying to branch out as actors in Hollywood and how they are constantly being put into roles, very specific roles for them. Really interesting book, and it was a very quick read. Recommend that as well.
Wow. And how are you finding time to do all this reading? 2 books in a matter of weeks.
Melissa, I was reading 1 book because I was doing a book swap with a friend of mine, so I felt like I had to finish this book so we can swap it out.
Yeah.
And then the Interior Chinatown is actually a really quick read. It's written like a script. Like that's the book. It's written like a script. So it's really, really easy to read. I finished that within a week. But it took a lot of time to read these books, and I'm not reading any books right now. I need to take a break from reading books. Those are the ones that I have finished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you know what? I was just looking back through my Facebook feed because I was thinking, I'm not reading a lot of books, but I'm definitely reading articles. I love it if it's short, sweet, get to the point.
Yeah.
I don't have attention. Yeah, I don't have the attention span for a lot of long content at the moment. And I have a couple magazine subscriptions, which are actually really beautiful. I get the Sojourners magazine and I think Yes magazine, which I'll post on our social media. Both really cool. Kind of like socially progressive storytelling. And Sojourners actually comes from like a Christian perspective, which is really cool, and talks about justice issues. Yeah, super dope. So I've been swapping and sharing with friends, actually. So actually, though, one book I did finally pick up because I'm very much into books that like I can interact with.
Uh-huh.
This is The Artist's Way, and it's a book that I think it's about 30 years old. I think my mom gave it to me first years ago. This may be my second copy of it. I think I bought it again after moving and losing the book or giving it away. But written by Julia Cameron, and she's an artist, an author. She does fiction, nonfiction. This is one of her best-selling works. She's a novelist, a playwright, a songwriter, a poet. She's worked in theater, film, and TV. Just an incredibly creative person, and it's like one of the books for creative people. It's called The Artist's Way: A Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity. There's also like a workbook that goes with it, but there are like these basic principles in it that basically anybody can be creative. And I felt like because of the COVID blues and because of my experience around trying to keep up my mental health, that being creative is a way that makes me feel alive. And so
Mm.
some of the principles that she shares, just like on page 3, the first one is creativity is the natural order of life. Life is energy, pure creative energy. Um, and she talks a little bit about God, whatever is your God or your life force or your creator or however you look at that. She integrates that into here. Number 6, this is interesting to me. The refusal to be creative is self-will and is counter to our true nature. So I feel like that. I feel like when I'm not being creative, I'm not totally living, which I love that we're like creating this podcast because we're in that state of creating something. So part of what this book asks is that you write 3 pages every morning and just get crap out of your head. Just like pour it out, put it on a paper. I've succeeded a couple days this week, but it'll help you go through the process. And one of the reasons of doing that I appreciate is, we can have a lot of talk in our head and wake up every morning with a lot of ideas and thoughts. For me, it's like, oh, I should have, and I didn't, and it's a lot of like negative self-talk, which connects a lot to issues around mental health, how to be healthy. By the way, I'm noticing I'm burning incense, and if you're watching,
That's what it is.
I'm not catching on fire. It's my incense.
If you're not able to see it, there's smoke that's in the video camera.
What is that? I'm not smoking weed. It's incense. So check it out. There's like all these great inspirational quotes along the border margins of the book, and so one of these is from a person named Ingrid Benjis, who says, "Words are a form of action capable of influencing change." And so, there's this idea around journaling and putting things down on paper, going from your head to your arm to your hand to the paper, the ink, and putting it down. We can create things by writing them, which has got me thinking a lot. My kids aren't going to like this, but they're texting with their hand, they're typing, they're not writing anything by hand anymore. So I've been thinking about we're going to have to do some journaling challenges. Like I grew up writing in a diary. Did you ever do that, or journaling?
Yeah.
And I feel like it was good for me in like learning who I am, problem solving, finding ways to be creative. Um, and then here's another great quote that makes me think about just this process this book takes people through, by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." So this idea of we've got lots of greatness inside of us, and writing, journaling, creating art, I think is just a great expression and way to pull that greatness out of us. So I'm enjoying this book. I'm going to do my best to be committed to it for the long term. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Melissa,
Yeah.
a parenting book last week. Were you able to finish that, or?
Oh no. No. I think I've got my books are actually next to each other, the journals, and I got one more. Workbooks, Parenting for Liberation, Artist's Way. So when I'm thinking about being a better mom and when I'm thinking about being more creative, I think I need to balance of both. But they're living together and calling my name out.
There you go.
Stay tuned for my progress. Now, podcasts. I know you're listening to podcasts, and I do that too sometimes. What have you been listening to lately?
So in terms of podcasts, I tend to listen to I listen to a lot of NPR. I love listening to the Carlos Watson show. But I came across United States of Anxiety, which is, I think it's produced by NPR. But this episode or this series they're doing right now is the history of Black History Month. And so they do a deep dive on something and do historical context. And this month is about the history of Black History Month, where it started, why it's in February, which I thought was cool. And then there's another.
Wait. Is it because it's the shortest month of the year?
No, no. Contrary to many beliefs, it is not. So I encourage people to check it out so they can find out for themselves why it's in February. And then another one, it's about gentrification. It's called There Goes the Neighborhood. It's a few years old, but I just came across it. But it's about, they go into communities and just do a breakdown of like what's happening in terms of gentrification. So the first season was Brooklyn, the gentrifying of Brooklyn. Second season was LA and how it created a housing shortage or housing crisis. And then third season is what I'm listening to right now. It's in Miami and what they're doing and how they're displacing people. So to me, that's real interesting. But yeah, in terms of other podcasts, I really need to get into creative podcasts, things that will spark my creativity. I love to learn. I'm very curious. So I listen to a lot of podcasts that do breakdowns or talk about what's going on in the world. So if you have any suggestions, anybody, I need something to like spark my creativity a bit because I'm in a creative rut.
Oh my gosh, I've got a great book for you.
What is it?
I bet you there's a podcast. We'll have to look it up, but that's what it's all about. Regardless of what your creative outlet is, it's finding it, taking the time to explore and find it.
Well said.
Maybe no matter what the age, you got it in you. Like, you know, it drives me nuts when adults will be like, I can't draw. I can barely draw a stick figure. I'm like, that's okay. Like, not everything has to look realistic. Sometimes it's just like being an artist is actually just doing it, applying it, making it happen. If you're not creating, then you're not an artist. So
I think my only creative outlet would be what I consider creative outlet is cooking and doing my makeup. I do my makeup almost every morning.
Okay.
And to me, it's because it's very therapeutic. It's almost like a coloring book. You know, like just coloring is. I'm really into shadow and light and how you can play to make it undetectable. To me, that's really interesting. It's not about like whacking eyeshadow on, but I really am into colors and textures and but then making it natural. And so I don't know, I guess maybe that's my creative outlet. But when it comes to like art, I don't have a clue. Or just being creative in solutions or just thinking differently. I'm in a rut. I usually expect like I go to activities or events that will spark my creativity, but now I don't have that. So then I'm not doing anything about it.
Very true. Very true. One other thing I will say that I'm reading, since I'm into bite-sized things, is I'm reading a lot of articles around COVID, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But particularly like in how to debunk some myths around COVID and how communities are reaching out, like to the Black community or to the Indigenous community, other communities, trying to make them feel safe around getting the vaccine, and just how to do outreach in a way that builds trust in communities. So I'm finding that really interesting. And then one article that I'll post to our social media that caught my attention, the headline was in CNN on February 16th. It said, reparations for slavery could have reduced COVID-19 transmission and deaths in the U.S., a Harvard study says. So I was like, whoa.
What? That grabbed your attention. Okay.
Yeah, right? And just, I mean, I'm feeling a lot of conflict around COVID and the things that people hear and believe and think and feel. What I've been paying attention to is things like this article shares that Black Americans and other groups, including Hispanic and Native American people, are as much as 4 times more likely to be hospitalized than white Americans. And this is data from the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And I'm finding that interesting, like looking at the data and then the hearsay, comparing it to hearsay of what people are hearing and what they think is happening with who's being vaccinated, who's not. So more to come on that. But just this concept around if our economics were better, our health would be better. I think there's definitely a correlation there. So articles with that kind of a title, that's what's catching my attention and what I'm reading in between my Zoom meetings and dinner or sleep.
Awesome. Any podcasts?
Nothing lately other than I still love the New York Times, the Daily. That I can listen to for a good 20, 25 minutes, and it grabs me every time. So I'm a little behind, but I shout out to the folks over there at the New York Times and the Daily Podcast.
Love the daily. I find them so inspiring. I'm Michael Barbaro.
And here's what you need to know today. I love them. All right, so now for our next segment, we've got What's Up in Our World, where we talk about what's wacky, wonderful, whoa, wow, and all of that. Anything that starts with the letter W. So the first thing that I was thinking about that's kind of wacky, as I was just talking a little bit about, are just some of these myths around COVID and the things that people have been sharing, saying, wondering. I even last week found myself Googling, is there a chip in the COVID vaccine? Just not quite sure what's really going on. Now, I will admit that I've had both vaccines, both shots of the vaccine. I think I'm on day like 7, so I'm a week away from having had both of my shots. So I hear that maybe next week I might feel some stuff. I did have like a 3-day headache, some pain in my arm, but it hurt more the first shot that I got, which had been like 4 weeks before that. So I'm just hoping for the best, that I don't grow an extra toe and like some polka dots and stripes, like I'm kind of in this place where I went along with folks that I work with and took the opportunity to get the vaccine in hopes that it would help me be able to do the work in the community that I'm doing, and being able to, like take care of my kids and my family and not be so concerned about my own personal health. But one of the things that I've learned is that there was actually a Black woman scientist, Dr. I hope I don't say it too terribly wrong, Kizmika Corbett, Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett. She helped to develop the vaccine. And so one of the folks who folks get to see her face and learn about, that she has been behind some of the vaccine development. So I got the Moderna vaccine, which so far so good. We'll see what happens. I'm again hoping for the best there. But I found it kind of wacky, all the things that I'm hearing, and people feel really strongly either in favor or against the vaccine and COVID.
My opinion on it is I'm really looking forward to getting vaccinated, and I can't wait. I have no idea when that will happen because I'm not at all in the top priority. But yeah, interesting. So there are wonderful things that are happening in our world. Nerd alert, guys! I'm really into space exploration. So when Perseverance landed onto Mars successfully, I was really excited. US sent a space probe, which took 7 months, traveling at the speed of light from Earth to Mars, and it landed successfully. We've sent several space probes to Mars, but none of them landed successfully. So this is the first one. Really excited about that. And it's been taking a lot of photos, and we're getting them back. Perseverance just landed on Thursday and sent some images back. So interestingly enough, Mars is not red, guys. The desert is yellow or brown, like Earth desert. It's the atmosphere that's red. I just think that the Mars terrain was red. I know that means nothing to a lot of people. To me, I find it so cool. Our mission there is to take samples from what we think is a lake. I say we like I'm part of the team. What NASA's doing as Earthlings, we sent this out because we want to see what life it has life existed. We did a few years back. I don't know if anyone remembers. We were able to detect water existed on that planet at one point, and so there's this crater that looks like it was a lake at one point with like delta sediment, like a form of a delta. Looks like water was flowing through it. And it has clay, what they think to be clay in that lake. So they want to get samples and see if they can find like bones or just kind of microorganisms that show that life existed there at one point. So I think it's really super cool. I think it just shows what humanity is capable of. Really, when on a positive side of what we just sent a spacecraft 7 months. I mean, to me, that's incredible. To me, it's incredible that they're able to communicate with this robot, and this robot's going to be there for 2 years. 2 years, just getting data like that. To me, that's amazing. And so to me, that's wonderful.
That's exciting. I wonder what they'll call it now that they know it's not necessarily a red planet. And will they change its
Right.
name like the brown yellow
Well,
planet?
it's red if you're in space, if you see it, but once you're in it, it's brown. It looks just like a regular desert, which I thought was really, really cool.
And you said 7 months moving at the speed of light. Oh my
Mhm. It
gosh.
took 7 months. And
How far away?
so it's going to leave its little samples that it collects is going to leave it there. Something else is coming to grab it and then take it back.
Mm.
It just doesn't have the capability to. I guess it had a long trip.
Hey, so do you know, I'm looking at a tweet from China, the state affiliated media, CGTN, that their first Mars probe, Tianwen-1, entered the orbit of the red planet earlier this month, like last week.
Yep. So
Mm.
they sent theirs after we did,
Mm.
but
Faster.
it wasn't successful in landing. So they have ones that are we are able to send things out and orbit Mars orbit.
Mm-hmm.
Orbit that you can go around. And so we have some satellite that does that now. China, Russia has it. So we're able to take pictures, but in terms of successfully getting to the atmosphere, going into Mars, and then staying alive, so to speak, we haven't been able to do that. So Mars is we're the first ones to do that. Russia just sent one out, China and UAE, which I thought was interesting. United Arab Emirates sent a shuttle out to, not a shuttle, but a space probe. So nobody's in these spacecrafts. It's just robots. But they sent them out too. So we'll see. Everyone's trying to get to Mars, I guess.
Right. I was thinking about how exciting space stuff is for different generations. And I remember like going and looking at seeing some of the spaceships launch. We could see them where I grew up in North Florida. You could kind of see them around the time that they launched. You could see them kind of shining, reflecting the sun's light. That was very cool. And I visited, I think, like a NASA space station as a kid. I remember getting the space ice cream, which was awesome. It's basically like dried, dehydrated, right? Crunchy. But it was on another day what was happening on the news, and my teenager asked my younger daughter to turn on the TV so we can watch it. And then a few minutes later, I was like, "Hey, so what happened?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, it already landed." We're like, "You didn't tell us!" Like there was no hoopla in the house. My 11-year-old was just like, "It's just an everyday kind of thing. Yeah, things land and take off and go into space like it's no big deal." So.
Well, what I think is interesting, we do a lot as Americans, we do a lot of just sending stuff out into space and doing research in space. So, like the space station, the International Space Station, but we haven't gone anywhere in 30 years successfully. We haven't gone on the moon. We did it decades ago. We haven't done that anytime like recently. And same with Mars. Like, we haven't tried in 30 years to send something to Mars. So, we do go off in space, but we don't go anywhere. We just kind of hang out and do, which is super cool. I'm really excited about what Elon Musk is doing with his company. I was really excited when that came out.
That space travel, like space tourism. Would you do it? Would you go?
This commercial flight. If I was a billionaire, heck yeah, I totally would. I totally would. I was really watching.
No way.
Really.
Not doing it.
Totally do it. I was watching the first one, which is in the summer. The timing was terrible. The timing was right during a lot of Black Lives Matter or a lot of protests that were happening in our country. So I felt like the space shuttle launch, this from Elon Musk, was like overshadowed, rightfully so. But even the spaceship that he created was so cool compared to what NASA can do. I mean, it was really sleek and stylish. Even the astronauts were like, "Yeah,
that's their ride."
Yeah, this is their ride. So I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I think it's pretty cool.
So back to planet Earth, we've got a lot happening on this planet, right? Over in Texas, one of our woes. What the heck is going on, and how are these people doing?
Guys, really cold temperatures. Electricity is power outages were just supposed to last a few minutes. We have people without power for multiple days. We have people, or it was up to 2 to 3 days. We had people without water, and this is Texas. Like, Texans aren't used to this weather at all. To have no power is so heartbreaking. And then I thought it was interesting, and that's my next wow is, or woe is, the Senator Cruz of Texas, who's got going to Cancun. The optics of that were terrible. I was never a fan of him at all, especially over this past year. But like, that was really a terrible move. Poor judgment on his part.
Who caught him? TMZ? I was just seeing all these images of him getting on an airplane on his way to Cancun. While
a lot of, because he's recognizable now, so a lot of people were just snapping pictures of him, posting it on social media. But he wouldn't even own it. He just said it was his daughters. His daughters wanted to go on this trip, and he was being a good dad by chaperoning them to so. Even though the wife and mom was there, and I don't know why he needed to be there. It was just terrible. It was a bad excuse to me. Even if it was true, it just sounded so bad. Like, what are you doing? Just own it.
Well, I was listening to some of the 911 calls and seeing some of the videos, and it's really devastating what was happening to people's homes being flooded. And there was one time I was in Dallas, and they'd gotten kind of like a snowmageddon kind of situation. It was around the time of a Super Bowl, because I was working on a library makeover project, and we were working with the NFL Players Association. And I remember just everything got flipped upside down because everything was snowed in. The community didn't know how to deal with the snow. They didn't have salt to salt the roads. Instead, they had to they found sand. That was like the best they could find. And they were just like sanding the streets to try to give it a little bit of texture. And what was really sad to me was the neighborhood where we were working on opening up this brand new elementary school library for the kids in the neighborhood. In that neighborhood, the kids were really struggling because there was a lot of poverty there, and the principal and teachers were sharing how some of the students would come to school and they would get their lunch, but they wouldn't eat it. They would save it and take it home so that their little brothers and sisters could have dinner at night. So I'll never forget that. And so part of our library makeover program with the Heart of America Foundation then was we had a partner in Target Corporation, and they had a lot of groceries and food items that they were sharing with the community. So we had to figure out a way to be able to get these items to the families, even though they couldn't necessarily come see this new library, but because kids were hungry and they weren't able to go to school because of the weather. So can only imagine when you've got, what is it, like a third of the community, over half the population has had water issues, and many are still don't have utilities. Like, this is going to be very, very devastating for people.
Yeah, and even people with those resources, which is a small percentage, but just they're trapped at home. The roads are frozen over. They don't have snow plows. It's going to be a few days before they actually get out. It's actually supposed to get a little warmer and start raining. Hopefully it melts the snow away, but it's just it's being compared to Hurricane Katrina, and just terms of the devastation that it's caused communities. You have elderly people with no electricity. I mean, you have even retirement homes or nursing homes. They're running on generators. Like, it didn't affect just single homes, it's affecting hospitals, and just and it's just something that we didn't really see coming, did we? A lot of 2021 is something we didn't see coming. We're all hopeful for 2021, but it's starting off with a bang, ladies and gentlemen.
I told you it was going to be just like 2020. I didn't think much was
going to... doesn't care about our January resolutions. Doesn't care. No reset button. I think mentally it's a reset button, but there's a lot more to come for this year. I just feel like we're in a different era.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I do have a wow that kind of gives me some hope. I was leading a diversity training for a corporate client this week, and it was structured like as a listening session. And one of the participants who was sharing, there were multiple people sharing their experiences with how race or ethnicity have impacted them through life. And toward the ends of the conversation, a man started to share his story, a white man. And as I paused to listen to where he was going to go with his story, he talked about how he was one of those folks who just could not stand Colin Kaepernick, couldn't stand that he was kneeling in the football games, wanted to see that guy out of there, he said. And then lo and behold, after the uprisings and the Black Lives Matter movement really gained national momentum, this gentleman shared that he had changed and he saw it differently now, and he realized he was able to finally see what it was that Colin was kneeling for, and he admired him and respected him for it now, and commented on just how incredible it was that Colin was willing to give up everything, and even through his nonviolent peaceful protest, just how he was ostracized. So that felt good. That felt good to me to hear this guy sharing his reality and his aha moment with other folks. And it gives me hope because, Renu, and the kinds of conversations we've had with folks around diversity and equity, it can be really challenging when people do not have relationships with folks who are different from them and don't get to, have any sense of empathy or understanding or connection to people whose life experiences are different. So that was pretty dope to me. That was a wow. That was a wow. Now I do have a what, and my what is the LAPD for Valentine's Day. Apparently, somebody over there decided to pass out Valentine's Day cards with George Floyd's picture on it and the quote, "You take my breath away."
What?
That just makes me want to puke. Just another reminder of how important it is to defund the police, divest from this violent system, violent, murderous, punitive system, and invest in community health, proactive, preventative resources in the community that will make a difference around making our community safer for all of us, not just those who don't have skin pigmentation like mine.
So, Melissa, what has been like the response to that in terms of what is the police department saying? How did that even get leaked? I know probably no consequences.
It's just like,
what is
I think people will just accept that that's just the way they're going to behave. I don't know that there's a real sense of what is it, like anger or upset about it, because it's just another example. I mean, the whole institution of policing was founded around racism and slavery, and there's just a huge disconnect from folks who can't hear what real people's experiences are with the police being violent and murderous. So I don't know. They're not, LAPD doesn't want it to get out, so there's not going to be a lot of information. But, I think folks are like whistleblowers if they can be, and trying to get things out anonymously in social media so folks can see. But it happens everywhere, all over the country. Police acting very badly.
Yeah. But that's just so untasteful. That's just disgusting.
Ugly. Yeah.
Boo. Mark Cuban, who's the owner of Dallas Mavericks, which is an NBA team. Interesting, last week he decided that he's not going to have the national anthem sung at home games anymore of the Dallas Mavericks.
Wow.
Why? He wasn't very specific, but he said he's communicated with or heard from African American groups and really heard his players' perspective on the national anthem, and that was enough for him to say we don't need it anymore. So that just sparked the question, do we need the national anthem sung at every sports event? I think any of us who watch a sports event or have been to a sports event, that's a part that always happens before a game is the national anthem. So then I just wanted to do a quick fun fact about the national anthem and when it started being used in sports in America. Because as we know, if you've watched the Olympics, I love the Olympics. But every country has their national anthem saying whoever's competed. If it's like two people or the winners, gold, bronze, and silver, they have their national anthem sang as well. Mm-hmm. So my fun fact is the national anthem was not really played at sporting events until after World War II. And the reason why is because they wanted to encourage this surge of patriotism that started. Some baseball teams, I didn't even realize baseball was being played in the 1800s in the United States. But it was, particularly in the South, after the Civil War, they wanted to create a sense of unity, right? The United States, after the war ended. And so some of the baseball teams in the South started playing the national anthem. But it really took off after World War II. But it just, do we need it? I don't think so. I think it's great, but if the team decides not to do it, I think that's absolutely fine too. And going back to what Melissa, you and I were discussing earlier offline, we as Americans, we have a right, a freedom of speech, a freedom of expression. And if a team decides not to do the national anthem before a sporting event, that's their right. And I don't go to a sporting event to listen to the national anthem. Most of us don't even pay attention to who's singing the national anthem, unless it's someone good.
Yeah.
Or if it's like the final and they get someone really, really good, right?
Yeah.
Whitney Houston, I think, is iconic in what she sang for a baseball championship game. That will go down in history as wonderful, but most of us don't really pay attention to what's going on with the national anthem. So I really don't think it's necessary. If we keep it, great. But if the team wants to get rid of it, I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. Our last episode, we talked about women in politics, specifically female senators of color. They're very, very few, what we talked about last week. This week, I thought it'd be interesting to highlight some women, Black women entrepreneurs. And one in particular that piqued my interest is Leslie Thornton. Okay. Leslie Thornton is amazing. She's the founder of a skincare brand or skincare line called Klur, Klur. So I started using the skincare brand. I thought it was amazing. And just did some research. And she is from Compton, so hometown neighbor. Hey, shout out to Compton, Leslie Thornton. But just listening to her story, so who she was before she founded a skincare line. And I thought it was interesting because I don't know many, there are a lot of skincare lines out there. A lot of new ones are sprouting up this year, but she's been around for quite some time, at least until like 2016, 2018 is when she really took off. She started off, she wanted to go to school. She went to FIDM. Then she became a makeup artist and just decided to, during the housing crisis, she lost her job and she decided to just devote her time to becoming an esthetician. She's like, I can't get a job being a makeup artist. I'm just going to go to school. I'm interested in skin. She decided to go to school, and how she worked her way from just during the housing crisis when a lot of people lost their jobs, was a lot of unemployment. And she talked about her story, talks about her really being broke and just figuring out what to do next, and how she came from that to creating her own line, and how her philosophy on the skincare, and just how she was able to open doors and live very fearlessly without being concerned about doubt. She has this mentality, which I thought I've just been inspired by. She just does things. For me, I tend to overthink things a lot before I actually do them, and want to make sure that my next step is right and well thought out. She just does them, and is okay with, she's okay being broke or not knowing when. She was okay not knowing when her next meal was going to come because she was so focused on what she really wanted to do, and to see how doors have opened for her, doors have closed for her, and how she just keeps on with resilience, just keeps on going. And now, she was sold at Urban Outfitters, but now she then went on to selling her skincare line just straight out of her own website. This is before everyone else was selling their stuff on Instagram. So I know we all are inundated with skincare ads, and skincare is the topic of, it's like a trend of this past year. But she was doing all this before then, and just to see her success and how she's adapted is something that I've just felt really inspired by. I think she's going to do a lot of great things in the future. So it's something I felt like we should probably just ask ourselves, do we know her? Because she's going to come out in a major way. She's not on Sephora or anything like that. She's just working out of her own website. It's amazing skincare line. If you're into skincare, totally want to support her.
That's awesome. And this Forbes article that you shared, we'll put it on our site, talks about Black-owned businesses. I've had some cool things happen, like since the uprisings last year, where some white folks would text me or inbox me and ask me like, hey, I'm looking for a so-and-so to help me with this thing around my house. Do you know a Black-owned like certified business that I could work with? So I love that. I love that people are like seeking out Black-owned businesses and trying to intentionally hire them.
Yeah.
So this article is talking about just a great way to support the Black community and Black-owned, women-owned businesses beyond just social media is with our spending power. Although 50% of women-owned businesses are women of color, they only bring in a smaller revenue versus white women-owned businesses.
Oh, interesting.
It looks like they bring in $422 billion, where women-owned businesses bring in $1.4 trillion in revenue. I've never heard of this. There's a State of Women-Owned Businesses report. Wow, that goes through some of the revenue and compares it and shows just this big discrepancy between those the earnings based on race. I'm going to be on a panel discussion this week talking about local downtown Long Beach for Black History Month. We have a panel discussion in the morning on Tuesday talking about how has our downtown Long Beach impacted the Black community, past, present, and future. And a lot of the issues, Renu, how much it's changed downtown.
Yeah.
We talked about this before. A lot of the issues are related to economics. So Black folks have been pushed out because of gentrification from Long Beach. A friend of mine today was telling me her parents met on 4th Street. There was like a reggae shop there somewhere on 4th Street, and that 4th Street had a lot of like Black-owned businesses. Well, they're few and far between now, and several Black folks have moved out to the Inland Empire, or I swear every month or so I hear of another family that's like moving to Texas.
Yeah.
Is getting away from this city that has gotten so expensive, LA County. It's gotten so expensive for people to be able to stay in the community where they grew up. They just can't afford it anymore. So I'm going to be talking about our Black-owned businesses. What is it that gets in the way of them being able to thrive and survive in a place like LA County when decision makers are not building in mentoring programs or seeking out, like my friends who text me, seeking out Black-owned businesses, trying to purposefully bring in diversity in the landscape, or building into like these high rises that are built. There are policies where you could build in inclusionary housing, where a percentage of these high rise luxury units can be affordable living too, and building that into the community to retain some of the heritage and history of people who started here instead of pushing them out. So I think this is important. I love this article. It's a list of a number of Black-owned businesses that folks could shop at online. Get to know your Black women-owned businesses.
Yeah, and a lot of it is moving on online, even before COVID, but now during this era, it's mostly online. And it's just interesting. And I do encourage people to take a look at that Forbes article, because it really highlighted some amazing women doing businesses that everyone heard of. And so that's why I always get really interested in like the women. We can talk about it in our next episode, because I want to make sure I have my facts straight. But the Black-owned business that's made the most money is a moving company. Oh. So when we think about, I want to own my business, I want to do, a fashion line or something. Like, she's like, I'm going to do a moving company, and she's doing very, very well. So I just thought that was really, really cool. Just thinking outside the box and doing something different, which is really, really cool.
Love that. So a little bit more for Do We Know Her? I've been highlighting Black women from Black History Month. Because I was going to do the usual, have you heard of this person or that person for social media? But I found a really great article that went through like prominent women, Black women who've done incredible things through history. So we'll post some of it on our Instagram. One that stands out for me is a woman named Bessie Coleman. She became the first Black woman to earn a pilot's license and the first Black woman to stage a public flight in the United States. She specialized in stunt flying, which sounds super cool, and parachuting, and remains a pioneer for women in aviation. So I'm like, man, that woman, I would love to know what her life was like growing up. Quite daring beyond just race. What's that?
You would be friends with her. She's a stunt woman and a pilot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Another woman, I love this woman. I heard about her in a documentary I saw a couple years ago. Marsha P. Johnson. Have you heard of her? Marsha P. Johnson. She was an outspoken and fearless trans woman. She played a vital part in the fight for civil rights for the LGBTQ community in New York. And she was known as the patron at Stonewall Inn who initiated resistance on the night that the police raided the bar. Yeah, really instrumental in change around gay rights. The documentary I saw was really sad, but very enlightening to just think about what her spirit and what she believed in and how authentic she was as herself. Pretty amazing. Another one I highlighted that I'd heard this name but didn't know much about her. Audre Lorde. Have you heard of Audre Lorde? I've just started hearing this name. She was a writer and activist. A Caribbean American writer and activist. She was self-described as Black, lesbian, mother, warrior, and poet. This great photo of her with this beautiful afro. She empowered her readers with her moving poetry, often tackling injustices of racism, sexism, and homophobia. And she's known for her poetry and memoirs, such as From a Land Where Other People Live and The Black Unicorn. Just those titles alone sound pretty great, right? And then I'll tell you one more, actually two more, who stand out for me. That this was really new for me to read about them and learn about them. Mary Church Terrell. So this lady was a woman suffrage activist. I had no idea. I knew someone was Black, maybe back in the women's suffrage days. She was a journalist, which is fascinating to me to think about women journalists way back in the day. And the first president of the National Association of Colored Women and a charter member of the NAACP. She was also one of the first African American women to be awarded a college degree. Didn't know that. And then last but not least for now, Ida B. Wells, another name I've heard but didn't know much about. Ida B. Wells, she helped bring international attention to the horrors of lynching in the South, again with her investigative journalism. So I'm really intrigued by these women journalists. She was also elected as the Secretary of Colored Press Association in 1889. So just a couple names, some women to explore, learn more about, and share, and be inspired by during Black History Month.
There's one more I want to point out very quickly, because I think I learned about her and I thought this was phenomenal. Her name is Noelle Santos from the Bronx. She owns a Black-owned bookstore, and she opened up a bookstore in the Bronx because she felt like she loved to read, and she felt like bookstores needed to be accessible to people in the Bronx. And so she opened up a place called the Lit Bar. Love the name, the Lit Bar. So yay for her.
Okay. Noelle Santos. I'm checking her out. Wow, very cool. We'll share her info.
Yeah.
Dope. And that's the thing. It's like there's so many women today. I haven't even gone into the new generation of women who are making history still, right? Oh my gosh.
We talked about last week in the mask that we wear. One thing that really came to my attention, or something to really think about, is the amount of time that we are spending indoors this past year, and continue to do so. And the media is calling it, or research, medical industry, or the research tools have said that we are now experiencing what they would call the COVID blues. I'm sure we've all heard of the winter blues. Winter blues is actually a nickname for what's called seasonal affective disorder, right? S.A.D is the acronym, and we are talking about that because, man, we're in the middle of winter. For some of us, We are experiencing a full winter. We just talked about
You're in the middle of winter in Chicago.
a lot of the country is really in a deep freeze at the moment, or coming out of the deep freeze, or have experienced it. February is a real hard month. If you know, you know. You're shaking your head yes at me. Yes, February is one of the hardest months because it's usually one of the coldest, and you're really tired of just winter already. You want spring to happen, um, but we're also dealing with COVID in terms of um, being in our home. So we're all talking about quarantine. You may be working from home every day for a while. You may have people in the house with you. You may be living alone and working from home. You may be at a business where there just aren't a lot of people around if you do have to go to work. But we're not out and about. We're not doing social activities. We're just not outdoors as much as what's considered healthy or what we would normally be. California gets to be outside all year long. A lot of us are able to just be outside, but even with the restrictions, right? So every state and every county, every city has their own different restrictions about when it's when to come out, when not to, where usually when we're outside, it's usually to conduct some type of business, right? We're there to run errands and come back or whatnot. So what impact does that have? What impact does it have to be in the house all the time with fewer opportunities to interact with people? And that really is causing a form of almost depression, a form of blues. Wanted to bring attention to a Yale medical school article when they talked about the COVID blues, and just really saying that is the new winter blues right now. And some of the symptoms that they said that we can be aware of. And the symptoms are pretty much the same as what we would experience any other time with feeling depressed, right? So we have inability to sleep. So being very, very tired, but inability to sleep. Other symptoms are just depression, lack of interest in anything, eating poorly. Um, these are all the symptoms of SAD, which is sad to say, but seasonal affective disorder. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about what we're experiencing. Are we experiencing these symptoms? What are we doing about them? How long have we had them? Because I think it's something that we really of interest I mean, it's applicable to a lot of people. Whether you're dealing with kids who just aren't in school and they're driving you crazy, there's just a lot of what we're dealing with that, although it's been happening for almost a year now, it's something that's really taken a toll. And some of us have adapted, but even just getting through winter, I think it's just had a different type of toll on people. So I'm going to have that be a topic of discussion. I'm just curious, Melissa, when we talked about, you mentioned that, over here, February is different than February in California. Just want to see what your experiences is. How are you living? How have you been living in terms of what is the situation? Are you living alone? Do you have people living with you? Are you working from home? And how has that impacted just your overall mood, right? Your overall state of well-being?
Yeah, great question, and kind of, I want to say hilarious, because we have not recorded this podcast for 2 weekends in a row because of depression and the winter blues and the COVID blahs, right? Like, I've had a heck of a past, right? It was today, I woke up 5 minutes before a meeting, and jumped in the shower, got dressed, and then finally got outside for a walk, which rocked my world. Being outside in the sun, that's helped. But we have sun over here. You don't, unfortunately. You don't have it like we got it.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have struggled with depression and anxiety maybe my whole life, but I didn't really first notice it until probably after my second daughter was born. And then
Mm.
I really realized I had postpartum depression in a big way. And I finally started to get vocabulary to describe why I was feeling the way I was feeling. So I live in a home, I co-parent, and I have my 2 kids here, and their father lives in this house as well. and we stay pretty much hunkered down in the house during the pandemic. Get a lot of groceries and things delivered to us. Sometimes I go out. If I go out socially, I do try to social distance. Like today, I had a walk with a friend, and we social distance with a mask on. But my kids aren't really interested in going out right now. They'd rather just either go somewhere in a car and look out the window and then come right back home, or they'd rather just stay on the couch. I mean, they've got, like, think about when we were kids. Video games and TV was the best. So now they've got video games, TV, apps. My kids have cell phones and iPads and computers. Oh my God, they've got everything. And so they're pretty content. And shout out to all the teachers, especially the PE teachers, I'd say, who have these kids still somehow moving around during online school. But I'd say the COVID blues have been hitting me hard. I'm a fairly introverted person, and I like having time to myself. I've liked being home so much. I work remotely, but I do miss the social stuff. I do miss getting out and just listening to music, or I don't know, being able to go to somebody's house and hang out, or the distance is tough. How's it working on you?
It's been rough. So I would say I'm probably the main person. Like I really was struggling the past few weeks, and I'll tell you why. I just about my situation. So I've been working from home since all of this has started, right? So almost a year. Most likely we'll be working from home for the remainder of the year. The social interaction that I had at work is gone, right? So even the social interaction with coworkers and teams, that's done. It's very minimal. We don't have a lot of conference calls, a lot of Zoom meetings, or video meetings, as much as we used to when all of this started. But and also I do live with two other people. I live with my partner, who and as an entrepreneur, he's not here much. He has businesses that he runs, that are open, and so he's gone a lot there. And then his son is with us, and his son has been getting homeschooled as well. With that said, I'm an introvert extrovert. I realized that. So initially, I was really excited about working from home because my commute was ridiculously long. I was spending 2 to 3 hours every week just commuting, and just now having the opportunity to have that time back, it was great, and it still is great. I really actually have learned to really appreciate working from home. But as winter comes, I realized that my opportunity to be outdoors and how important that has been was hindered, um, or it was postponed until spring. For us here, it's really a thing. At least for me, I'm a Californian and I live in the Midwest, and I understand that. And there's a part of me that will never be a Midwesterner because um, during our really cold weather that a lot of the country experienced the past few weeks, we were experiencing single digits and sub-zero temperatures, and that's not exaggeration. That's
Woo!
fact. And I didn't go outside. I hadn't been outside in 15 days. Today was the first day I went outside, and the reason why is because I don't participate in society when it's that cold. It just really, it's not comfortable. Okay. And it's been snowing, and snowing is romantic and can and seem really cool. But when it's that cold out, it just freezes and turns into ice. So you're just slipping and sliding everywhere. Um, this part of the country, like we're a well-oiled machine when it comes to snow. Like we will plow like the roads, the sidewalks. It's pretty sufficient, self-sufficient when it comes to just dealing with snow. But we just had a lot of it. Long story short, I've been in the house for a long time. I don't go outside because it's just too cold. But today was the first day, because we're in the 20s right now. It sounds terrible, but it sounds great to me. That's warm, and so we went out. I went outside, and just
The 20s is warm?
yeah, because we've been experiencing such cold weather, like
Oh,
such cold weather. Um, but there are a lot of people who are from here. They're outside and they're doing what they need to do. And I wish I was like that, but I'm not, and I'm okay with that. But just I'm exercise. Exercise is really important to me, which is one of the things we'll talk about what they said to do. And I would run outside, and I didn't have that. Wasn't about to buy a Peloton.
Mm.
I keep my Peloton. I almost got the Peloton. I just don't have a physical place to put the Peloton, which is the only reason why I didn't buy it.
Right.
But I'm trying to do like YouTube classes, figure out what to do for exercise to really get the cardio, because cardio is real important, right? That's what boosts endorphins and really is a mood booster. I just lost all motivation, guys. It just lost. Just really wasn't into it. Really wasn't into it. Creativity was gone. Inspiration was gone. It really has been rough, and it just combining that with COVID isolation. So not going out to all the events. Again, it was okay in the beginning. I don't know if anyone else experienced this. They're like it was okay, it was doable in the beginning, but I think now, especially as winters really set in, a form of hibernation has occurred. And
Mm.
wants it's like it's okay to feel this way, just embrace like the recognizing it is what it is, and then just really being mindful of what you can do moving forward. I'm a healthy eater. um, During COVID, Melissa, in the beginning of quarantine, that's what we'll call it, is I focused on eating healthy. Well, a lot of people were not, because I said, okay, I'm at home. Like I don't have an excuse. I'm in control of what comes in this house. I'm in control of what happens in this house. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to exercise. And, I have 3 hours of my life back every day. What am I going to do with it? And so I saw it as a way just to get on track and be healthy, mentally and physically.
Yeah.
Somehow that just fell along the wayside. Yeah, I brought so many sweets home. I just finished my last cookie. I've been eating tons of sweets. So like I'm getting sugar rush, or the sugar crash.
Yeah.
Um, just and my scale is being mad at me right now because I'm adding
Aw.
a couple pounds to it. And
Just
so
a reminder, we are in a pandemic.
so I just dealing with that is just something I'm just trying to get out of. And I know
Mm.
we know what we need to do, right? And this is what medical guidelines, CDC guidelines: go outside, eat better, like eat healthy foods, which I will say is not as fun. It's not as fun as eating ice cream or getting that emotional satisfaction from eating some junk food. But
Yeah.
I really like, as testimony, I really feel physically better overall throughout the day and subsequent days if I eat better. I
Oh,
know that, but
yeah.
emotionally, I rather have my cookie. Okay, give me my sweet any day. Okay,
Yeah.
like what are you doing to beat
Mm.
this sadness that we have? Are you getting support? What's working? What's not?
Yeah. What works? I think what works for me is getting outside into the sun.
Mhm.
So I have pledged myself to walk every day with or without my dog for like at least 15-20 minutes. And I was listening to a TED Talk. It was a TED Talk by Dr. Stephen, I think it's Ilardi. He had a TED Talk about, he called it Depression is a Disease of Civilization. And what he was saying is that in his studies, they've looked back at our hunter gatherer ancestors, and that depression was not at all a part of their lifestyle because they were outside. They were outside in the sun. They were moving. They were physically moving. That was just part of their lifestyle to like be hunting and gathering, right? They were in community with people. So there's a lot of wisdom to that of looking back at our ancestors. Um,
Mm.
so for me, like going outside for a walk, getting sun, I'll take breaks, even if it's like my 5-10 minute break between the Zoom call. I'll go out to the yard. I'm really fortunate to have some grass, and I've got a puppy, and I'll throw the ball with him, and he just makes
Mm.
me laugh. The laughter has been great. And then I try to schedule at least once a week a walk with a friend. Put on our masks, so that we can be
Oh.
around each other, right? And walk. So those are some of those things. It's like we know what it takes for mental health, but the hard part for me is always like just putting on the clothes and getting out the door. Once I'm out the door, I'm better. What kind of things work for you?
So outdoor time is so important to me. It really is. I'm just trying to get through these next few weeks. Looks like we're kind of edging out. Be better, longer days. less cold temperatures. Being sunshine has just been really important. So I do. Um, Typically, what I'll do is I taken up running. I was not a runner before this, so I just started doing that. I live by Lake Michigan, so just go on the lake. There's a nice trail, and that's like my happy place, and that's my time to really. Um, to me, I listen to podcasts while I'm running, or I'll listen to music, different playlists. It's just a way for me to like. I really do feel better at the end of that, and just really walking around, if even if I don't feel like running, because I live in a neighborhood that's full of it's a densely populated neighborhood. There's people walking around. It's the type of neighborhood I live in. It's like a just like a Brooklyn, like just people walking around all the time. And I feel connected, even though I don't know these people. I'm just walking around, just to see people out doing the same thing that I'm doing. We're all just trying to walk around and get our exercise. I feel like I'm part of humanity at that point. Just doing that has been real important. And then having phone calls, really staying connected, because I can go dark, and that's something I really challenged myself this year to do, is to really stay connected with people.
Yeah.
Really make a conscious effort to do that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like making the conscious effort. So what this doctor was saying in this TED Talk is that depression, not just sadness, but like major medical depression, it is a disease of our civilization. Though he said we can defeat it. And he was pointing out that the rate of this really was sad. The
Mm.
rate of depression has been increasing generation by generation for us in America. And I know you and I have talked about how in other countries as well, literally every generation is having a higher rate
Mm.
of depression. But when he looked back at the hunter gatherer lifestyle, they didn't at all have any type of depressive lifestyles. And it was like the Industrial Revolution that was the turning point for us. Because all of a sudden we're relying on other things and other elements in our lifestyle to take care of business instead of our bodies and being in relationship with folks.
Huh.
He says, we were never, this is so sad too, we were never designed for the sedentary, indoor, socially isolated, fast food laden, sleep deprived, frenzied pace of modern life. And we can't fix it with just medication. So his tips, which are some of what you were sharing, he says there's 6 factors that will change our neurochemistry. So I think that like having an accountability partner, a friend to help us with
Yeah.
these things, maybe what can work. One, like you just said, exercise. Exercise is literal medicine. He said a low dose of like, if you were to think of medication and take it on a low dose, he said just 3 days a week walking for 30 minutes, that's a low dose. And you'll feel an impact from it. I know I feel great by the time I get out and start moving, feeling joy, I'm elated, I feel the sun, I hear the birds, right? I'm smiling, I'm a little more relaxed.
Hmm.
The second one, which I want to learn more about, is omega-3 fatty acids. We've got a big ass jar of fish oil,
Yeah.
fish oil pills here. I just don't always remember to take them. Third is sunlight. So whether you're in Chicago, maybe buy that lamp that gives you the light that's similar to the sun, that's supposed to be good in treating people who are experiencing the S.A.D. Healthy sleep, of course, having like a routine around it. Anti-ruminative activity, which you looked up and said it was about not doing drugs.
Drugs.
Keep it healthy. Keep it healthy. And then that social connection piece. So reclaiming these things in our lives can really change our body chemistry. Just for us having the social piece ripped away from us during COVID, that's huge. That's huge for us. Or people losing their jobs, losing a sense of self, maybe. So I think these are all good tips. We've heard them before. Drink a lot of water, eat healthy, move your body, get some rest. But I think we may need to rely on one another for these things to happen when
Yeah.
we're feeling stuck.
Because it's easier said than done. And let me tell you, that cookie, that ice cream
Oh, yeah.
is easier and way more accessible. Just easier to just eat than like cooking. I know a lot of people have taken up cooking this year,
Mm,
past 12 months too, but just really, understanding that it's easy to say these things. We know it's hard,
hmm
harder for some than others based on our situation. Like I said, I don't have kids. I'm not a mom. I don't have a dog, so I'm not forced to go outside, like people who have to walk their dogs or, get their kids out of the house for a little bit. And so I have to be very conscious, making sure that I do what I need to do to go outside and get that fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
My next question then, Melissa, is like, what support can your peers give you? You mentioned the accountability part, but what can be helpful from others as you battle the COVID blues?
It's a good question. I think first, the way I can relate to that is just as a person who does have to work really hard for good mental health because I do experience major depression and anxiety.
Mm,
I think it's important for people to understand the difference between being sad and major depression that's diagnosed because I think people don't totally understand how debilitating depression can be. It can impact. I've experienced it. It's impacted my job, impacted my personal life, impacted my physical health. Like it's a real health issue. And I think during COVID times, being aware that this can really magnify people's experiences around major depressive disorder, I think it's important for folks to gain some understanding around it. There's a lot of like great website resources right now. Even you could look up cdc.gov
mhm.
or a website I work on, bewellcollab.com. I think it's important for people to know how to help family members or friends who are really dealing with major depressive disorder. I think in COVID times, the phone calls are great. I actually would prefer a phone call over a Zoom nowadays, so I can just take it anywhere in the house or outside. Don't feel the pressure of having to look ready made. What works for you right now? Like what do people do, or what do you want folks to do to help you stay uplifted during
I
COVID?
think the important thing, and thanks for asking, Melissa, is just social interaction. I think I need that more than anything. Um, like I can go outside, I can, do all that. I think I didn't realize how important it was, and I know that sounds silly because people, we need social interaction. Um, but even just a phone call, a text, and for me too, I need to pick up the phone. I need to text and see how people are doing, just checking in with people and just talking to someone because I can go through a whole day without talking to someone. A lot of my work days are not talking because we do a lot of email and chats, like
Mm.
a form of texting instead of, or sometimes our meetings. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but we used to do video meetings, but now a lot of us don't even turn our phones on, our cameras on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we only
Wow.
speak when we have to. It just kind of turned. I don't know if that's a symptom of the disorder. If other people are feeling it too,
Wow.
but so what I've done is just really reached out to coworkers, just chatting them on the side and asking how they're doing. Like a lot of my coworkers have taken up taking care of plants,
Yeah.
as a way to just find happiness. And
I've done that. I had a friend come over today because I had these green onions that were like huge, and we weren't cooking them or eating them. So I was like, "Please come, take my
that's
onions."
great. I have been taking up plant care, or like a growing little herb garden because it's winter. Like they died.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep one alive. They're on life support, but it was really cool to see like putting onion in water and seeing how that grew.
Yeah. Yes.
To me, that brought a lot of joy. So when we talk about what brings us joy and happiness, I think it's those little things that really I felt like an adult, really, Melissa, because I'm growing vegetables. I can grow my own food in
Yeah.
in a city windowsill because I don't have a yard,
Uh-huh.
windowsills, and so just like little things like that, and really finding that joy. We talked about creativity earlier, so maybe I think just finding that creative outlet. Just to
Mm.
like connecting with someone, even like our little book swap. So, friend of
Yeah.
mine, instead of having us both read the books at the same time and both buying the books, because if you read books, and I'm old school, I like a physical book
Yeah.
versus a Kindle or something like that. I like a physical book, but man, that stuff just turns into clutter after a while, and I rarely read books more than once. So we've got this book swap situation. So we're buying less books, but just those type of interactions to me is really important. And just like this podcast, just any opportunity to connect with people. Where before it wasn't as much a priority. It's no big deal because I'm constantly interacting with people.
Right.
I used to interact with people so much I'd come home so tired and like drained.
Yes.
Now, when my significant other comes home and I just want to talk his ear off,
Hey,
talk to him all day.
some friends, we started a puzzle swap too, which is totally fun.
A puzzle swap. Okay,
Yeah.
do tell.
Just putting together large ass puzzles and then trading them. You can trade them with people of any age too. Yeah, totally fun. My hope is that people will go back. Like, let's go back to thinking about our hunter-gatherer ancestors, right? And our origins. Let's go back to things that maybe we did as kids, playing games in the living room on the floor. For us, it was like when the power would go out in Florida, we'd like play cards and stuff with mom and dad on the floor. Or let's go back to just before the cell phone was like the thing. Like, let's go backwards and look at some of the wisdom and the ways of our past, because I have a feeling there were some rich lessons there that will help us be more healthy. And so I hope that as we transition to whatever this new normal is going to be, that we find some of the things that work for us that worked a long time ago and use them in our everyday life. Because I think that'll make the difference.
And keep that going.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like it's too soon to really see like what the impact is with this new generation of children who are born with the electronic device in their hand. And while there are things that are lost, I think there's a lot of positivity to it too, but we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
I think it's just important to really hold on to what makes us human, and it's not electronic devices. It's interaction with people. It's just sitting around, like just the fact, took for granted, just sitting around with your friends or loved ones doing nothing.
Yes.
Like
Right, like a long time ago, folks just sat around a fire to stay warm, right? And they would have to talk and tell stories and tell the stories through generations. Like, just doing that now with a mask on, sitting around a fire is dope. It's so much fun. Hey, so I love this, Renu. You introduced me to the World Happiness Report, which I think is such a fun idea. So here's the 2020 report. They ranked 156 countries based on 3 years of surveys. And they focus on environmental, social, urban, and natural impacts, I guess, and links between happiness and sustainable development. So the happiest country in the world for the third consecutive year is not us. It's Finland. I think we need to learn what are they doing over there. It's followed by Denmark, Switzerland, Iceland, and Norway.
None of which are near the equator. These are not warm places, guys. These are Northern Europe. These are up north, where it's quite chilly.
So, Miss Chicago, I think you need to find out what are they doing over there.
You need to get on that.
Your neighbors' worlds, with like some better lifestyle living. Yeah. We need to learn from our neighbors, even if they're on the other side of the planet.
I just encourage everyone to just really pay attention to where we are with our feelings, our emotions, our state of being, and do what you can to really get moving, get out of that funk, beat the winter blues, and don't let it take over you. I have heard people who are spoken with people who it seems like they just let it take over them, and it is up to us. I let it take over me a few weeks, but I'm back. I'm back, baby. Really just understanding that there are things we have to do that I can do, that I can control to beat it.
Well, I also think we have to remind our friends, remind each other, which I do when I'm walking with my friend. It's a pandemic. Be easier on yourself. Like, we're going to gain some weight. Yeah, we're going to sleep in. Yeah, we're going to feel a little bit checked out. Yeah, totally. We're in a pandemic. Like, chill out a little bit. Be a little bit easier on yourself. And then just find those little things you want to do. Is it a book? Is it a podcast? Yoga and meditation, I think, are going really far right now. So maybe you tap into that, right? Call a friend. Start a garden.
Try. Social media is this double-edged sword, because social media is how we stay connected with people, but it's also a time sucker. And so, man, it's easy to get distracted with social media. So distracted. But I just want to encourage people to try to do things that are not involved with just reading comments. I'm guilty of social media being a time sucker too, but really focus on like what we can do with to really interact with people. I think is really important.
We want to kind of end off with some thoughts and reflection on joy. What brings us joy? The people, the places, the things in our lives that are bringing us joy. How about you, Renu? What's bringing you joy?
So just to kind of piggyback off what I was talking about, just finding little things, right? That brings us joy. Plants were a part of them. But right now, something I'm into that's sparking joy for me or bringing joy to me. I'm really interested in Duolingo. Like I'm learning French, guys. And again, I want to remind you, I'm a nerd. I like space and I like learning languages. It's what I've been doing with my time. Um, I just felt like, we always talk about, oh, if I had more time, I'd work out or I'd learn a language. I decided to learn the language with some extra time. So there's an app. It's Duolingo, Duolingo. It's a free app. You can pay. It's a paid service as well, but I just use the free. I'm fine with that. And I am rolling along. I'm loving my Duolingo. I do it before I go to bed, and that's something that's really sparked joy because I had no knowledge of French, and now I feel like I'm doing a lot better. What about you, Melissa?
I talked about it a little bit earlier, but definitely like scheduling those walking meetings with a friend or squeezing in a couple minutes of throwing the ball for my puppy out in the yard. And he never wants to drop it, so I have to chase him a while until he gets tired and drops the ball. Um, and then one thing that I did, a little guilty pleasure, is I finally watched the whole series of Bridgerton.
Oh, really? The whole series?
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of fun with the star Regé Jean Page, who you just told me is going to be on Saturday Night Live tonight. So I'll check him
Yeah.
out.
You want a
So it was
little
a lot of fun.
people? He's hosting it now.
Yes. So nice to watch beautiful people and to think about what life could have been like back then in a way that isn't too terribly stuffy, but and a little bit romantic and fun. So I've enjoyed that. That's brought me some joy.
Yay.
I'm just thinking over there in Chicago, I see it's basically nighttime. As in the video, you are fading into
As the
black.
natural light faded very quickly. Yes.
What is happening over there? What are you seeing, hearing, and feeling?
So again, I hate to sound like that. I feel like a Debbie Downer with the weather is so cold. It is we this whole country or a large part of the country is experiencing a lot of cold. We've had a lot of cold and a lot of snow. Today was the first like weekend day where it has not been cold. It's been in the 20s, which for us is warm right now,
Woo!
and it's been sunny. So people are out and about right now in the snow. So what I've been literally seeing outside my window, I'm on the third floor and I can see out on the main street, is that there are kids outside. They're doing snowball fights, a lot of sleds, just a lot of people just walking around. So that is what I'm seeing is like a positive energy of just being out. We sound like deprived people, but when you live in a winter climate, you understand. Like when it's ready to, when the weather is decent, you take full advantage of it. So that's what the positivity vibe is. What I'm feeling today. What about you? What's going on in Long Beach?
Man, I just wish I could see out your window. That would have been so cool to see people sledding. Like it's such a fun childhood memory.
It is, yeah. I mean, I have no childhood memory of it, but just to see, just to see kids. I Before I moved here, I didn't see people with sleds. That was something I saw in movies about Christmas,
Yes,
or
yeah.
winter time. And living in DC, people it hardly snowed when I lived in Washington DC. Right, there was no sledding. But here's the thing: like people take their kids sledding, and there's a lot of parks right around here where there's just like a lot of snow and some hills. So I guess you can go sledding off of. So a lot of kids and a lot of snowmen too. People are making a lot of snowmen, and it's really cool to see people's creative interpretations of a snowman, and quite a few with masks, which I thought was cute.
Please share your pictures. I
Yeah,
love it.
I'll
That's
show
so
you that. I will post that icicle formation that's happening outside my window. Mhm.
so different than my
You have
world.
sunny vibes going on over there.
Yeah. Gosh, today I went for a walk in a nature preserve area across the street from my house, and I saw people on like homemade scooters driving, someone on like a 3-wheel thing. Sometimes I'll see people on their horses going to like their horse stables. Yeah, amazing. Skateboarders. I saw a girl in some yellow skates this morning. Like, we've got any form of wheels, they're out there. And then there I am walking because I cannot ride a skateboard or skates yet.
Have you considered getting those electric scooters where you don't have to kick? I don't know.
I'd rather do it the real old school way if I
Okay.
could get the balance. But yeah, no, I've never used those, and I've actually seen people get hurt on them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm hearing a lot of birds. I actually recorded some the other morning because I've been going outside in the morning and journaling. So I recorded some birds and sent them to a friend to hear because they're just so loud in my yard. It's a nice sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of things that I'm seeing, hearing, and feeling connected, all three of those are, we've made national news here in Long Beach as the largest school district in California to announce reopening plans. So our school
Really?
we have, the district's gone back and forth over the last number of months saying that they were ready to open and then didn't open. And, numbers were spiking and people are catching COVID. It's bananas. So I'm watching and listening to and sharing and speaking up about people's experiences and perspectives around, should the school district open already or not? Are they ready? How are the teachers doing? Are the teachers ready? Because we don't have enough vaccine here for those who want to get vaccinated. And I think it's just kind of inevitable that we're going to have another spike. Our restaurants are open. People are, eating outside. And I don't know. I just feel like our kids have been through a lot. Our families have been through a lot. And we've just got a couple of weeks, literally weeks left of the school year. So to be continued. We'll see if they do really open up or not. Over in LA, though, the LA County has said that elementary schools could open, but Los Angeles School District says it won't open campuses until staff are vaccinated. So it's just so much debate back and forth, so many different opinions between, we've got families that live with multi-generations and small homes. And if their kids go and get sick, or if one of those folks is a teacher and they get sick and bring it back, you've got generations of people to be concerned about. We've got kids with special needs who, the parents are really concerned about the learning loss for their students with disabilities. And our district is saying they're going to do like nose swab tests for these kids, which can be really traumatic. So it's just a lot of emotion. I'm feeling a lot of emotion around different people's concerns and worries around, are we ready? Because it doesn't feel like we're ready at all.
Shout out to all the parents out there who have their kids at home, trying to learn while you're trying to work or figure out work or what have you. And I think that's also part of SAD. Real quick, is I talked about social isolation, but there's also the flip part of having everyone in a small home, like, small or not small, just having everyone in the house can take its toll too, in terms of like a form of cabin fever. So totally understand why parents really want to get the kids out to school, but then also understand too that people who work there want it to be safe and parents want it to be safe as well. It's a real tough challenge ahead. Yeah. Well, that's all we have for this week, guys. Want to thank you for taking time out to listen to us. Bye, 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 bye. Check us out on Instagram.
And see video versions of our Endnote podcast online at verbworks.org/Endnote. Bye, everyone.
Be safe and happy. Bye.